Welcome to the 9 Elements podcast brought to you by Restore Hyper Wellness. I'm your host, Eric Hinman. Each week, I sit down with trailblazers in the fitness, nutrition, and wellness communities, exploring how they optimize their daily lives for ultimate performance to do more of what they love. I'm a 5-time Ironman athlete, brand builder, and someone who's obsessed with health and wellness, structuring much of my day around fitness and recovery protocols. On today's episode, I chat with Jacob Zemer, a performance coach with a no BS approach to life and training. Jacob has recently started taking the Instagram world by storm with his insightful grocery store analysis videos, and he's just getting started. Today, we get into growing Instagram, but also Jacob's take on supplements, foods, and more, and I think we'll all take some valuable insights away from this conversation. Jacob, good to see you, brother. How are you today?
What's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. So we met, two-ish years ago now through our mutual friend, Mr. Brian Mazza?
Yeah, I just saw him about 5 minutes ago.
You did? Did you train him today?
Yeah, we did. We did some posterior chain. We usually do like a total body 3 times a week. So we hit that up pretty hard today and focused on RDLs, one-arm rows, and some anti-rotation movements.
You've transformed him into a hell of a strength and endurance athlete. I'll tell you a funny story. So I met Brian back in 2016. When did you meet Brian? Have you known him longer than I have?
So I knew him, and we kind of like interacted, and we had mutual friends, but then eventually we saw each other. Actually, we really became friends at a grocery store, and he came up to me and he goes like, dude, congratulations. I just did one like best trainer in Westchester. A mutual friend had done a startup, and I got involved with it, which just really allowed me to just really grow and scale my coaching business. And he just had heard about things about me, and he talked to me. And when I met him, I go, dude, I was like, I walked out of the room and I was like, I should have asked for the business because I didn't have any Instagram following whatsoever at that time. And afterwards, I immediately texted him because he gave me my number, super polite, gave me his number. I texted him and said, dude, why don't you come in and work with me? Mm-hmm. And he really, like, I always say, like, you know, the first 10,000 is the hardest on Instagram. Like, it took me like 2 years to get to 10,000, and then I've like blown up now. Like, relatively speaking. I mean, used to be humble, but I went from, in 2 months, I went from like 10,000 to 170,000 followers, right? So that 10,000 took me forever, and he helped me grow that initial burst.
So cool.
Cool. Such a good guy, dude.
He is. For those that don't know Brian Mazza, he's a wonderful person. He's an amazing connector. And he just aligns himself with incredible people, and he's an inspiring dude. So my story with Brian is we were 2 of the earliest people on the 10,000 team back in 2016. Okay. And we were asked to do a photo and video shoot in New York, and we were on the New Jersey side of the George Washington Bridge in some park over there. And at the time, I was still very much in the Ironman endurance training world, running pretty high volume. And he was very much in the tone house, like fast, explosive, soccer practice type stuff. And we had our lunch break after shooting, for 3 hours, doing some physical fitness. But in my mind, it was really nothing that we had done. So I said to him for the lunch break, I'm like, hey, dude, I'm going to run 8 miles right now. You want to join? He's like, fuck no. Are you kidding me? 8 miles? And now he's doing 50-mile races and deadlifting 500 pounds. And it's really cool to have seen his progression into the endurance world. He thought I was crazy back then. And, now I kind of think he's crazy running 50-mile races all the time.
I think you guys are both nuts, but that's just my perspective.
There's probably, a pretty high percentage of nuts in both of our minds.
By the way, I think I lifted like 3 hours yesterday. So like everybody has their own kind of crazy in the fitness industry. So
better than yesterday, right? Incremental improvements.
Yes,
so your Instagram following, congratulations. So awesome.
Thanks, dude.
So one of the big things I always tell people, if they're trying to build their following is go narrow and deep. And that's honestly what I've noticed you've done. You've gone narrow and deep on, a space that you're very, very knowledgeable about, which is nutrition, functional movements, and specifically like those grocery store videos are incredible.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
So when did you start doing those? And for those that don't already follow you, like tell us about the videos that you're doing.
Sure. So I think the first thing is like just for everybody in a nutshell about me, I really focus on the major. I don't get really big in the minor. And that's not because there's not any value in the minor, but I just, at this time in America as a whole, we're 72% overweight. Mm-hmm. And that's not decreasing. That's trending that way. And one of the simplest things that you can do to be healthy for the most part, because when we talk about BMI, some people will be like, yo, BMI isn't the whole story. Sure, my BMI is not the whole story. I have 10% body fat and my BMI is over 30. But for most Americans, what they have access to is a BMI, what their body mass index is, right? And other people, they could afford to get a DEXA scan or an in-body and see what their body fat is. But again, most of America can't. And we're 72% overweight. And if we could just remove that problem of the being overweight as a population, 60% of disease would go away right there. The number one correlation for heart disease, obesity. Number one correlation for diabetes, obesity. Number one correlation for all symptoms, every form, all symptoms cancer is obesity. So when you remove those things, it dramatically drops the mortality rate of our population. And so I really am focused on how do we get America less fat? How do we get individuals to lose weight and to get healthy? And I really focus on the major stuff. And part of what I do is I present things that you could see at the grocery store and just some information about that and kind of dispel some of the myths or some of the things like to prioritize. And it doesn't mean that certain things aren't important, like you could be concerned about organic in certain cases, but maybe it's not pivotal in every case. Or you could be, but I very much focus on the major things you have to do. Like I loved your video about, and I'm actually going to do a video about it as well. But to be honest, I was inspired by you, and I want to get the message out further. I'm being 100% transparent with you. When you did 110 to 130 beats per minute, zone 2 cardio being the essential, and it should be 80% of your cardio. And it's just, that's what you can just be active for 75 minutes intense or 150 minutes moderate cardio a week with your heart rate 80% of the time between 110 and 130. It's a huge benefit. So that's what I focus on primarily. And we go to the grocery store, we shot it. I had a video about berries that got 2 million views. I had a video, not to be negative, but I had a video talking about Liver King, and that got about 20 million views. And it's just really trying to help people see the forest from the trees. And I really do focus on simple things that really, I live in New York, or right outside of New York, in a county called Westchester, and majority of my clientele work in New York City. And these people are executive level people who have families and they have careers, and they just want to make smarter decisions while managing a really busy life. And that's what I help people do.
You're big on protein, right?
Huge.
So,
two things.
Yep.
Protein, fiber.
Yep.
Those two are like the majors.
Walk me through. I'm 180 pounds. How much protein should I be taking in every day? Fiber. Walk me through, your meal planning for me. What would it look like?
Sure. So you're exemplary. So let's just start with a basic human being and just say is a good, because remember, I'm big on the basics, but as a good rule of thumb, depending on how active you are, probably there's a thermogenic effect to both protein and fiber. And what that really means is that the partitioning and the way that your body uses those calories is a little bit better than traditional like calories in, calories out. For the most part, calories in and calories out is a factor, and then you have hormones, and then certain things have thermogenic effects. Protein and fiber both cause satiation, and they're both utilized differently. So like when you have protein, in order for your body not to utilize protein, it then either has to be secreted or it has to be converted to carbohydrates, which require additional caloric effort to make it into that. So if I had a 180-pound guy and he wasn't as exemplary and muscular as you, I might have him have 0.6 of his body weight in protein. So let's just do real simple math. Let's pretend you're 200 pounds for a minute. If you were 200 pounds, I would say you would need 120 grams of protein. If you were relatively sedentary, but you were, again, 200 pounds, that's what I'd say. If you were very active, like I define that as about 4 or 5 days a week, I would say 0.8. Because you're so lean and so muscular, I would actually do 0.85 your body weight in protein. I eat 0.85 times my body weight in protein. That is my floor. That is my minimum. If I eat more, it's not bad. I'm not going to harm myself. We have a ton of research on kidneys around protein. There's no issue. But my first goal for Eric, if he was 200 pounds and as active as he is to get him 170 grams of protein a day. Out of those 170 grams of protein, then we start caring about the second factor when it comes to protein, which is timing. and I try to break up those meals. And I try to do it simply. Protein stores anywhere from 2 hours to 5 hours, and that's a simplification depending on what else you ate with it and depending on when you ate last and stuff like that. The reason we don't answer that question is like concretely is because there's so many variables in it. Like, did you eat protein 3 hours before? Did you have fiber with that protein, which slows down the breakdown of it, things like that. But relatively speaking, like I would try to get protein every 3-4 hours. And so I'd probably want you to have at least 4 meals. And if we're dealing with, again, 85, so 170 grams of protein a day, maybe 4 meals of 45, right? And you get 180 grams of protein a day, and you're good. Or we break it up a little slower, and we do 4 meals of 40 and a snack of 20 grams of protein. Because protein timing, your body has a mechanism for storing fat, right? I'm Italian. You can see a little bit. I have 10% like low body fat. I can see my abs, but I still have these little Italian cheeks on me, right? We all know that there's a mechanism for storing fat, unfortunately. Eric doesn't. He doesn't have any mechanism. He's clearly not in his body. I'm kidding. A little bit. But I'm being serious. But we know fat stores. Carbohydrates also store. Carbohydrates, they become glucose or sucrose or lactose, depending on what they are, and then they store either in our liver or in our muscle cell, depending on what they are and depending on other factors. Protein does not store. Protein is either utilized in a time frame or it then goes through gluconeogenesis in which it converts to glucose. So you want to time protein. So number one, you look at your body weight and you want to get X amount. So again, for you, we'd say 0.85 times your body weight. And to simplify it, we make 180 grams a day and then we time it throughout your day. That is extremely important for composition and it's extremely important for satiation. 2, fiber. Dude, fiber is, we're just starting to scratch the basis of this and like how important fiber is. I saw a research study recently, Elaine Norton, who's an extremely respected researcher and who also has got on Instagram and created a following for himself. Thank God he's been on the Joe Rogan podcast and stuff like this. He was talking about a study that came out recently where every 10 grams of fiber, ate consistently, meaning if you eat it regularly, will decrease all symptoms mortality by 10%. So if you think about that, if you had 30 grams of fiber every day, your risk of mortality, your individual risk based on your profile and your demographic decreases by 30%.
Wow.
If you had 50 grams of fiber every day, it increases by 50%. I mean, just the more research we're seeing, I mean, I can tell you, and I'm not a doctor, I don't play one on Instagram, but I do see people's blood work. I do send a lot of people to doctors in terms of like having a conversation about like, hey, go talk to your doctor about this blood work or what's going on with this. I will tell you that when you increase healthy fats and stuff like that, very useful for your cholesterol. But fiber has bonkers effects, dude. If you get somebody to start eating fiber, you'll clean up their cholesterol, you'll clean up their blood pressure. It's unbelievable. Now, some of those things are chronic. I'm not saying for everybody. I'm not a doctor. I'm not pretending to be one. But on the nutrition side of things, I can tell you flat out, fiber will be a game changer for your for your labs work and for your health markers. So fiber is extremely important. And then again, it helps with satiation. So when you're having fiber, it's very hard to keep eating. I tell clients all the time, you want to lose weight, have protein, have 3 cups of vegetables. Good luck. Good luck being having room for a snack. Right? And so I would then probably look at just a normal everyday person and say, oh, let's try to get, if it was a male, just because males tend to be larger, I would probably say 50 grams of fiber. That would be like our base mark where we start with. Somebody like you, I'd probably want you getting 70 grams of fiber a day. And primarily for fruit and vegetables. So like 3 cups of broccoli is 12 grams of fiber. That's a great way to get it. If you had 2 cups of berries, right? Another great way to get fiber. So making these choices, almost viewing food as like sort of like medicine and making strategic decisions to get enough. Some selenium husk as a supplement might be helpful as you start out. Whey protein as a supplement when you first start out might be helpful, and eventually trying to get to be as much whole foods as possible, because again, about 80% of your diet should be single ingredient foods.
Agree. So walk me through protein. Is all protein created equal? Is all fiber created equal? Is it better to have salmon, steak, chicken? And then what fiber is the best? Or, blueberries better than bananas, broccoli better than...
Love it. Okay, so when we talk about protein, the first and foremost thing I'm going to go back is 1, total amount of protein in a day. So start there, because I see so many people and they try to turn things into high gear and they can't sustain it and they just crash and burn. And so they just redline the engine every time in this pursuit of perfection. Perfection is a form of passivity. It allows you to never reach it. Like you said, you want to like make gradual changes. You're trying to change your lifestyle. The first thing I would say is have a goal of, again, if you were 200 pounds, to try to get 160 grams of protein a day. In your case, we said a little bit higher, like 170 grams. Like if you're a relatively set-a-day person, 120 grams. Start there. Systemic is most important. 2 is timing. And then you can start talking about nutrient selection, which is the type of protein you get. And when we talk about like bioavailability, which is a fancy word, like what protein digests the easiest, like you want to have complete amino acid proteins. So people have talked about, like, for example, vegetarians saying, oh, vegetarians can't get complete protein. That's not true. They just would have to eat like a combination of, for example, corn and soy. Those two together have perfect amino acid profiles. Another example would be rice and beans have it. When you're not a vegetarian or in the other case, vegan, steak, complete protein. Salmon, complete protein. Chicken, complete protein. Do I think one is superior to the other in terms of like actual quality? No, probably not. They're all probably relative, and they all have advantages and disadvantages depending on the situation. Like a chicken tenderloin is very, very lean, so it's going to be less caloric. Salmon has an omega-3 profile. That's very useful. So it just depends what you're looking for. Steak has cholesterol in it, and you do need cholesterol to keep your hormones healthy. Would I eat my entire diet in fatty red meat? No, I would not eat my entire diet in fatty red meat, but I would pick and choose which protein sources you want. They all are excellent as long as they're complete proteins. Is that a good answer?
That's a great answer.
Accurate? Great. Okay. And then when you talk about fiber, like I'll give you just a couple ones. There are no magical fruits. There are no bad fruits. Okay. But ones that are high in fiber, berries. Wild berries are chock full of fiber, massive in antioxidants, but wild berries, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, all phenomenal options, really, really high in fiber. Apples, oranges, peaches, pears, all very high in fiber. None of them are wrong, none of them are right. Bananas are high in fiber. They tend to be, again, a little bit more caloric. They're not just fructose, they're sucrose. There's this concept of fruit being making America overweight. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. America is not overweight because of fruit. That's not why America's overweight.
Processed foods.
Yeah. I mean, of all the things that you could point to and say, oh yeah, you're eating too much fruit. That's not what America's doing. America's having massive portions out to dinner, and they're just not portioning sizes. I mean, fruit is not the cause. And fructose is not sucrose. They're two separate things, and they break down differently. And then again, fruit has fiber. When you talk about vegetables, broccoli, asparagus, green beans, peas, carrots, all massive content of fiber. Again, they aren't magical vegetables, but these vegetables are high in fiber, and they're ones that you might want to implement in your diet. Kale, very high. Spinach, very high. But the thing with them is I like to call like kale or spinach a double-edged sword, because you can eat like this much, an entire box of kale, and it's like 60 calories, but at the same time you have to eat this much of kale to get 60 calories. So it's amazing if you want to fill your stomach, but at the same time you have to eat a lot of it to get a lot of fiber out of it. So, but again, really useful for fiber content. And I think you should be open-minded to products that allow you to get fiber. Like I mentioned, selenium husk. There are even things out there that are like Eat Better bagels are very high in fiber. Quest protein bars, yes, they're semi-processed foods. But again, if you look at them as just a tool to help you get to your fiber content, and they're not the bulk of your diet, they're very useful in helping you get there. There's a lot of wraps that are high in fiber, very useful. And again, I think majority of your food should be things that you pick, grow. 80% should be single ingredient. There's nothing else in it. But allowing room for some things like that I actually utilize as a tool, very helpful.
I always tell people that structure is one of the most important things with diet. Like, what you're saying, single ingredient, whole foods. I think a lot of people understand that. Whether or not they understand how much protein or fiber they need to get in, probably not as educated on that. But for me, I always preach structure. Once you understand this formula, it's figuring out those foods that you enjoy and eating them around the same times each day, so that, so much of where we go off track with with diet is decision-making fatigue. We're making too many decisions around food instead of understanding the formula and putting it to some degree on autopilot and enjoying it. Like, I love what I eat every single day. I look forward to it, but it's, I don't have a ton of variety. It's a lot of the same every single day. And that allows me to not have to think about, what am I going to have for breakfast? Maybe I'll have cereal today. Maybe I'll have bagels. I kind of know every single day what I'm going to have specifically for breakfast and lunch. Dinner twice a week. We go out to dinner, and I'll go off the plan. But 80 to 90% of my meals every single week are basically pre-planned.
Look, I mean, what you're saying is 100% accurate. For the majority of America, like we talked about, who's 72% overweight, maybe not the majority of people who are listening to this podcast, but potentially some of them, that sounds great, but it's very difficult for them to conceptualize, right? Mm-hmm. But you're 1 zillion% correct. It is structure. This concept of discipline and having to constantly be disciplined through your whole life and like white knuckling, it's a fallacy. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're a very disciplined guy. There's no denying that. I'm a very disciplined guy. Mm-hmm. I had to be in order to, I grew up in a home, my mother was pregnant with me at 15. My dad was an alcoholic. I was in a sink or swim scenario. I had to be like, okay, we're doing this. I was the first college graduate of my family. It went on. My siblings are all like, they laugh about me. They're like, Jake, you live in a bubble. Like, what's this life you live? Mm-hmm. And it's because I really did push through. But like, more important than anything, dude, it's a structure and a regiment. Mm-hmm. And you have a regiment, and I do too. I wake up every day and I grab my 3 prepared meals and I put them in there, and I grab my apples that I buy every week, and I grab my 2 packets of guacamole that I buy, and I grab my mission carb wrap that I put in there, and I have my salmon, and I have my buffalo chicken in a wrap, and I have my selected meals. And I think that's essential. I think the biggest thing that you need to do is start by creating habits that you have. So like creating a structure, and just having certain things that you have on the menu or options or like go-tos. Like a lot of people that complain, they get to the cafeteria and they pick out a food. Well, just bring a smoothie with you. Mm-hmm. Right? And like go through and look at what the places you're going to order for lunch and pick a couple options. Mm-hmm. And like when it comes to dinner, like maybe you have a hard time meal prepping. Well, instead of making 1 meal, make 3 meals. Mm-hmm. Right? So when you cook salmon, instead of making 6 ounces or 12 ounces for you and your spouse, make 1.5 pounds. Mm-hmm. And now you have lunch covered tomorrow. So it's starting to think about tricks and ways outside of the box that you can create that structure for yourself, because that's what's essential. And it's not about pushing through and being disciplined every time. Like, okay, a perfect example. I had somebody, and they just started their weight loss journey with me, and they were scheduled to come in for a semi-private with a group of people tomorrow at 10. And they texted me last night, and they said, hey, I'm not going to be able to make this semi-private, which they've given me more than 24 hours notice, so they won't get charged. But I said to them, hey, like this period, like make this a priority for yourself. Now, what they did was they scheduled a work meeting during that time. I would never do that. And here's what I mean by that. You need to go on your calendar, and you need to put the time you're going to work out and put it on that calendar. The same way if your kid had a recital, the same way your kid had a soccer game, the same way you would if you had a business meeting. I'm not telling you to put fitness above your family. I'm not telling you to put fitness above your job. I'm just telling you, put it on your calendar, and if you don't have to, don't cancel the meeting. When I schedule stuff, for example, if somebody's trying to schedule with me, we don't cancel stuff. We first try to see if the person can schedule around it before we cancel anything. It's the same way with your fitness. Put your 2 o'clock workout on there, and if somebody says, hey, do you have 2 o'clock open? Don't immediately cancel your 2 o'clock workout. Mm-hmm. Say, no, I don't. Do you have 3 o'clock? And if you really need to, or if it's really important, it's about family, then reschedule your workout. But otherwise, it's at 2 o'clock, and try to get the other stuff to schedule around it. Mm-hmm. Put it on your calendar, make it a priority. Set up things so that you have a successful structure that you can succeed in your diet.
Yeah. So I do prioritize health and wellness. I don't have a family. Yeah. My business is based around health and wellness. But for me, I mean, I know what makes me the best version of myself. Like, I'm going to show up as the best boyfriend to Sarah if I get my workout in.
But that's your family. But that's your family, dude.
Yeah,
that is your family.
It is.
She's your family. She's your family.
And I'm going to show up, to this podcast as the best version of myself if I get my workout in. So, that's honestly why I prioritize my workouts, my recovery, all of that, because my cup is full. I show up as the best version of myself from that. And I think that's something that, people need to reprioritize how they think about exercise. Instead of it just being a checklist item, it's making you the best version of yourself. So you show up as a better employee, a better business owner, a better husband, a better dad, a better whatever. So I truly believe that, yeah, self-care for me comes first, because I'm going to show up as the best me for everyone else around me. My cup is full. That's going to overflow. That's going to make others better.
I mean, one, you're preaching to the choir, and two, look at the number one non-health benefit to exercise is being prepared to do things you don't want to do. I think they just put this out in a news periodical. I just saw, I can't remember which news periodical put it out, recent study on it. And then also too, I've seen a TED Talk in the past with a neurologist, and she talked about that's why Google and Facebook are prioritizing yoga studios and fitness at their facilities, because when people work out, they are ready to work all day. It makes you your best self. You feel good about yourself, and you go in there and you show up and you send that email that you didn't feel like doing because you deadlifted. And maybe you felt like, I don't want to do that fourth set of deadlifts. Well, you went and did it, and now when you have to talk to Chuck from HR, you're like, all right, no problem. I'm going to email Chuck from HR. It puts you in a situation. And I agree. Like, I actually think, like, I will do this all the time. Like, if I have somebody who works for me and they say, okay, I'll do that for you. I go, what? You're going to do that for us. You're doing that for us. Or my girlfriend will say, like, I prioritized you over such and such. You did that for you, or you did that for us? I mean, like, if the building was on fire and my dog was in there, I can tell you I would run in there for my dog, because I will not wake up the next day and look in the mirror and say I did not try. If I had to look at that man and look at it, I would not be able to stand what I was looking in the mirror. If I didn't at least try. I'm not saying I would let myself go up in flames, but I'm saying I would do anything and everything I could. And I think that's the same principle. Like, when you go to work out, you're doing it so you're your best self, so you can show up. And you got to go through, I mean, as far as I know empirically, this is my only life. So I want to show up, and I want to feel my best, I want to look my best, and I want to perform my best, and I want to show up in situations and be my absolute best.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell people that the aesthetic is a byproduct. Like, I'm using exercise, I'm using a healthy diet, I'm using cold exposure sauna, all of that to fuel energy, mental clarity, and emotional well-being. And that's what they all do. I mean, the way I explain it with, like, we all have these massive to-do lists, and it can get daunting. It sometimes feel like we have the weight of the world on our shoulders. And, exercise and cold exposure, sauna use, for me, all of those things that mount up vertically over time, they become horizontal after a workout. They become horizontal after a sauna session, a cold plunge. Like, everything seems so accomplishable. And, it's a stress on your nervous system. It's preparing you for bad stressors that come about in life. So someone cuts you off on the road, you lose your job. Like, you handle it so much better if you're exercising, if you're doing the cold, if you're doing the heat, because you're preparing your nervous system for stress.
I mean, a sauna has so many benefits. I mean, in terms of, like, blood pressure, just health in general, recovery. And then think about it. You're in a sauna. Like, can you really comfortably bring your phone in the sauna with you? So just 2 minutes. Having that out of the 2 minutes. Yeah, exactly. So you're in the sauna without your phone. I mean, you have to, like, you use the analogy of the cup. Like, if you're 100% full, nothing else can go in there. And so sitting there without your phone and just being able to think about life, like, you can get some real aha moments. I mean, I had a real aha moment. I wasn't in the sauna. Literally, I was sitting there and thinking about things with my business, and I was like, you know what? Like, this is what we're going to do next. And we have a call tomorrow at 1 because of it with a platform, and then we're talking to someone else on next week about it, and we've already pivoted to it because I was like, okay, we're going to open up a different price option for people. Not everybody can do the coaching with me. Not everybody can see me one-on-one. So let's go with a lower. And I thought of that when I was literally no cell phone with me. For like 20 minutes, and like I had this like real epiphany. So the physical benefits, the mental and just the recovery benefits, unbelievable. And you have to take time for you, or you can't show up your best self.
Yeah. My best ideas, and I like to look at things as collecting dots and connecting dots. Like, we go through life collecting all of these dots, meeting people, collecting experiences, having conversations, and you need time and space to be able to connect those dots and make something of it. So for me, it's, those zone 2 mountain bike rides, trail runs, where I get my best ideas because I'm connecting all of those dots over time. And another hack for me is I get a deep tissue massage at least every other week, sometimes once a week. And, sure, it's some for physical recovery, but the majority of it is tuning out for 90 minutes. Like, the ideas that come to me when I'm getting that deep tissue massage are incredible because you have space. You don't have your phone dinging, you just have space to allow for all of those things you've experienced, in your life to like come together and formulate this amazing idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in it. Even when it's not even exercise related, like a lot of times it's still exercise to the general pop. But like to me, it's not difficult. But like I'll take my dog on the trail every day. My dog has been with me from, poor, didn't really have a family to now, and I'll pick him up in the car from daycare. He gets dropped off at daycare every morning by somebody. I pick him up. We go to the park. I would say probably 340 days out of the year. Like occasionally there's a storm or occasionally I just have something in my whole day's calendar. But I'd say 340 days of the year we go to the park and we walk this trail and I don't bring my phone with me. Mm-hmm. And I'm just looking at the trees and I'm looking around and it's just another opportunity where I can really like think about life and appreciate where I am now and like what's going on and think about things. So I think the mental clarity is massive.
Did you know morning sunlight can actually help you sleep better at night? It sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. Light helps reset our circadian rhythm and enhances energy production. And thanks in part to his early morning dog walks, Jacob knows the value in getting natural light early in the morning. Restore Hyper Wellness has 2 fundamental light modalities to promote health, optimize mood and energy, and promote skin health and clarity. Red light therapy uses red and infrared wavelengths of light that can help boost energy levels, relieve minor pain and swelling, and balance your mood, all in as little as 10 minutes per day. Or lay back, relax, and unwind in one of Restore's state-of-the-art infrared saunas. In 40 minutes or less, you have the opportunity to release minor pain, accelerate athletic recovery, boost circulation and cardiovascular health. Soak it in today so you can sleep better tonight and do more tomorrow. 9 Elements listeners can receive 20% off your first Restore service using the code ELEMENTS20 when making your first appointment. That code again is ELEMENTS20 to save 20% when booking your first service with Restore. Talk to me about supplements. I know we've had a lot of discussions about this. Like, tell me some supplements that you would recommend for pretty much everyone. And then talk to me a bit about, getting blood work done to understand your hormone levels and then, supplements based on hormone levels.
Great. So I think first and foremost, when it comes to supplements, they are not necessary, but they are definitely beneficial. Mm-hmm. And I think the first one that I would say for everybody, and people might be shocked, is creatine. Creatine monohydrate is useful for everyone, geriatric population, men, women. If you're lifting at all or you're starting to age, which hopefully you are, right? Like it's better than the alternative if you're getting old. That is going to help with skeletal muscle mass. It's going to help with strength. It definitely helps with performance. We have so many studies on it. We have longitudinal studies. No, there's no risk. You are going to see an increase in performance and endurance, an increase in performance and strength, and lean muscle mass. And it's a vital supplement that I think everybody could use. Mm-hmm. Beta-Alanine, if you're someone like Eric or you're someone like Brian, even for myself, I am very big into cardio, just from more of a health perspective. Like I'm 240 pounds, I'm 6'3". I run like 8-minute miles. I'm not a beast, but I have a low resting heart rate. My heart rate's in the 54. It's my resting heart rate, and that's important to me. So from a health benefit, I'm doing plenty of cardio, and beta-alanine will help produce endurance benefits. And I think anybody who's running, which we all should be, that is very useful. From there, I will give you one that's kind of like most people, which is fish oil is very beneficial, omega-3s. For most people, I know very few people. Occasionally, and I'm going to be a little bit maybe controversial when I say this, women tend to have better healthy cholesterol, your HDL, than men do. Mm-hmm. And so some women, they just have incredible, like good genetics, and they have like 70s, 80s. Usually it's women. I rarely see a man who has like 80 HDL. If you had 80 HDL, you do not need to take fish oil. But like for most of us, we're going to be in the 60s or 50s. And if you're in the 50s or 40s, when you get your labs done, start taking fish oil. It's a great supplement. Do not just take one pill of fish oil. That's not going to make a difference. You need to take a significant amount of EPA and DHA, probably around 4,000 milligrams total. Do you want me to mention a specific brand, or
Sure.
do you not care?
Sure.
I use Nordic's Best. You do not have to use that, but it ranks up very high on the ranking lists of like actual quality fish oil. So pick a quality fish oil. Another one for most of the population, does not mean everyone, vitamin D. And especially one with K, because it allows it to absorb. Not everybody's vitamin D deficient. Most of you are. A matter of fact, close to 80% of America is vitamin D deficient. So if you are, and not everybody needs to take 10,000 IUs, but a lot of you do, and I take 10,000 IUs. Some people, maybe you're not that deficient, you only need 5,000. I need 10,000 IUs, and I found most people do. I'm not telling you to generically go take supplements. The only two supplements I told you to generically take are creatine and beta-alanine, depending on your level of activity. Omega-3s for most of you, and then probably vitamin D, but go get your labs done. Insurance, most people don't think that health insurance are the good guys, right? Like nobody's ever like, I love health insurance. I love HMOs. They're such nice people. They cover, in Preventative Health Act, your labs are covered twice a year. So if insurance is giving you something for free, it's because it benefits them, and how it benefits them is they get early detection of problems that they can prevent instead of them having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight something with you. They prevent you having the heart attack, right? That's why you go get your labs done, and they're covered under the Preventative Care Act. They're covered twice a year. So you can go in once for your physical, that's covered, and then a second time you can go in and you won't see the doctor. You'll just go in and see like the nurse, and they'll draw blood, and the doctor will talk to you, or you can go on my charts. But you can get it twice a year, and I mean, everybody should do it. Even if you're in your 20s, you should do it once a year. If you're in your 30s, start going twice a year. Do not be a bonehead. So go and do those. Those are great ones. I'll get into more detail about the blood work in a second, Eric, but those are the 4 supplements that I say would really work. And then it just depends on the individual. Maybe you need like DHEA. There's some other supplements out there. Caffeine. We have a ton of research that caffeine's great. I'm going to make a differentiate here, right? Like coffee is different than caffeine. Like coffee does, if it's caffeinated, works great as a supplement as well. Coffee has additional benefits. It's actually, believe it or not, the the leading source of antioxidants for America is number one, coffee. Wow. You know what number 2 is, dude?
What?
Wine.
Really?
And it's not a plug for wine. You should not be having wine. Wine is a carcinogen, is a class 1 carcinogen. But those are the 2 leading sources for America. But coffee is an antioxidant, and it's high in caffeine. And caffeine, just in general, whether it's from coffee or whatever, has performance and cognitive benefits. But it also has some detriments. Like, just be careful. Like, if you take coffee in the afternoon, it's probably going to affect your sleep. I had to shoot some content late last night. I had cup of coffee around 4 or 5 o'clock. I woke up at 2 in the morning, did not go to sleep. I'm tired today. I'm going to bed at like 7 o'clock tonight. So there's pluses and there's benefits, but definitely cognitive, definitely from performance. We know that caffeine works, and that can be utilized. Food-based products, whey protein, if you consider that a supplement, useful. Carbohydrate drinks, they're probably on par, most of them, like dextrose and this stuff, these are probably very similar to eating white bread, but they're still in a powder form. It can be useful. Highly cyclic branchdextrin, wildly absorbable carbohydrate drink. Those have benefits as well. So that would be my list of probably supplements. I will tell you flat out, most supplements are junk. And outside of many of the ones I named, a lot of them are no good. There are other ones, like melatonin. Melatonin, can I be completely open? So to melatonin, I had some people who asked me like, hey, melatonin is associated with Alzheimer's, so dementia. And people ask me why. Is the simple fact of the matter is antidepressants are correlated with suicide, with depression. Well, antidepressants and the correlation does not equal causation. People who don't sleep, we know, get dementia. And so if you don't sleep, you might be taking melatonin, and it's only correlated. It doesn't necessarily mean that it causes it. Does that make sense? Same way, if you were depressed, you take Lexapro. It doesn't necessarily mean that Lexapro caused you to be depressed. It means you were depressed, and there's a correlation, and you took Lexapro, and there's a correlation with taking Lexapro and being depressed. Clear? Okay, but melatonin seems to be one of those ones. There's a little controversy about it, but melatonin seems to be incredibly effective. For me, I'm a type A person. Melatonin and a little bit of CBD, a hot bath, sauna, something, magic. I'll go to sleep. 8:30, I'm in bed. I have a standing rule. I don't get into arguments. If I'm losing an argument, I say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Whatever I have to do. By 8 o'clock, I'm out. I'm not on my phone. I'm not taking business. I'm not on my phone after 7 o'clock, dude. I only engage with my dog and my girlfriend after 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love that.
That's it.
Yeah, avoid highly stimulating environments late at night. And, a stimulating environment can be, a conversation that wasn't finished, something that leaves your mind turned on. So I think that's one of the biggest detractors from good sleep is so many people are going out to late dinners, they're going out to clubs. And I'm not saying not to do that, but it is going to affect your sleep tremendously. For the most part, I avoid highly stimulating environments late at night. I don't like entertaining late at night, having lots of people here, or even new people where it's like, I have to be really on and engaged late in the evening. I reserve all of that for like 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. sauna sessions. That's when I have people come over. That's when I'm really on. That's when I'm engaging with people. But the evenings are generally winding down. We might have, a couple close friends over for dinner, but, it's not like a highly stimulating or engaging conversation that we're having. And I'm on the same train as you. I know melatonin's pretty controversial. I've been taking melatonin for 10 plus years now. And it goes back to my Ironman days when I was training such high volume. I had difficulty going to sleep because my cortisol levels were so high from, all the stress I was putting on my system. So, I kind of had to be able to perform. And I've decreased the dose. I take Beam Dream every night, which also has nano CBD. It has L-theanine, magnesium, so other things that are,
magnesium,
to calm your
very
mind.
helpful.
Yep.
Very helpful.
And so far so good for me. Like I sleep really well every single night and continue to perform pretty well and haven't had any, side effects from doing that. So I am a big believer in CBD. And then you mentioned hot bath, sauna. I love that you said that because there is a lot of research around doing something in the evening, like an hour before bed, where you raise your core temperature so that, and again, don't do it immediately before, but like an hour and a half before bed, because your core is going to try and cool itself down as you're getting to bed. And that is one of the, natural things that our body needs to do in order to fall into deep sleep. Your body needs to cool, and then throughout the night it starts to raise, and then in the morning you wake up as your body temperature is rising. So it's kind of, you have to wrap your head around getting hot to get cold, but your body is working hard to cool itself down right when you go to bed. And then we sleep in a very cool environment, 65 degrees. I'm so fortunate that Sarah allows me to do that. But yeah, super cool, dark environment. I wear earplugs. I'm very, very strict with all of my sleep protocols because sleep is the number one recovery tool.
Amazing. So I'm going to, we talked about those dots and then connecting them. So let me connect two dots because let's talk about sleep and we didn't talk about blood work. And I also pulled up my phone obnoxiously, but there's a point behind it. You see this thing? 7 o'clock at night.
Face
down like this, like that, on a table. It's on the counter. I don't even go to, I have an Alexa in my room, and my Alexa is my alarm clock. And it knows at 5 a.m. Alexa goes off. If you want to call me, if you need to get a hold of me, you say, Jake, well, how can anybody get a hold of me? They can call me through my Alexa. My mom, my sisters, anybody that would really need to be able to get a hold of me, they have that number, and they can call that number.
I love that.
I'm not working from that phone after 7 o'clock at night. I'm not looking at anything. So CBD, melatonin, amazing for sleep. And again, having a consistent bedtime, the number one thing you can do. Last night I said I had a hard time sleeping. It was because I worked out a lot. I worked out, do my normal training session, then we shot a bunch of content for videos. And one of the things you can do, I woke up at 2 in the morning and I went right into the bathroom and I took a hot shower. And I sat in there for about 20 minutes, took a hot shower, let my core body temperature cool down, and I fell asleep again. And you raising your core body temperature, I like to do like, say 8:30 is your bedtime, 9 o'clock is your bedtime. I know I sound ridiculous, guys, but let's pretend 10 o'clock is your bedtime so I don't sound so zealot. So say 10 o'clock is your bedtime. At 8 o'clock, put the phone down. At 9 o'clock, 9:30, take your melatonin, go get in a sauna, go get a hot bath, get out, walk into a room, pitch black, that is somewhere between 68 and like 60 degrees, and my bedroom is usually like 63, 65 degrees, and there's just my girlfriend has a lot of covers on her, and I don't have any covers on me, and I just lights out. And you know, that you raise your temperature because your core body temperature, as you mentioned, cooling is how you fall asleep. So those would be some of my keys to success, and some supplements surrounding that. Again, CBD is amazing for it. Melatonin is amazing for it. And in terms of like labs, again, go get your blood work done twice a year. You want to look at things as you start getting older. I've had conversations with clients where they're female and they're like, "Oh, I think I'm in menopause," and I'm like, what do you mean you think? Like, what do you mean? We can go get data. Go get data. Like, go ask your doctor to order DEXA scan. You think your body fat's something? Go get a DEXA scan. Go answer the question. You think you're going through menopause? Go get your estradiol looked at. Like, figure out, are you pre-post, where you're at. If you're a man and you're 35, 40 years old, I mean, look, it's time to go get things looked at. Like, you want to get a baseline for your PSA. Like, I had an EKG done randomly by a great doctor. He randomly did my EKG, and it turned out I was AFib, and they think I got AFib. I was one of the first people. I always joke, and when COVID originally came to the United States, I was had a client whose wife was in Milan at a fashion show. My client ended up getting sick right when they were shutting everything down. He sneezed on me. I was like, at the time, it was like everything was falling apart, and I was like, oh gosh, this is me. I wasn't super hyper concerned, but for whatever reason, I went AFib. My heart, even though I've always had Eric, my resting heart is so low, I didn't even notice I was AFib. What was happening, I was beating in 50s, and then I would bounce up to 70. So I would never feel my heart that high, because even though it would bounce, and even when I was exercising, my heart rate gets to like, you know, I do my cardio, I'm doing like 120. Even if it would bounce, it would only go to 40. I didn't even know I went through proper steps, no longer AFib, perfectly fine. But you don't know unless you're taking the proper precautions and going and getting EKG. And, you know, now I typically most days wear an Apple Watch, and I can monitor and stuff like that. Like, go get the necessary PSA. If you have a family history of prostate cancer, that's how you measure your prostate cancer. Get a baseline for that. You want to get your labs done. See how your testosterone is. See how your IGF-1. I saw you posting recently about GHRP6. Or perhaps it's GHRP3, but there are various products out there, Sermerlin. There are things out there that help improve your quality. I mean, if you have low testosterone, it doesn't mean that you have to do TRT, testosterone plate replacement therapy. Perhaps you just do a period of HCG and you improve it. Maybe you have low testosterone, but you're overweight, and once you lose your weight, your insulin sensitivity increases, and your testosterone pops back on. You're no longer hypogonadal, which just is a fancy word for low testosterone. So getting your labs done, it gives you an indication. I always say, I was talking to a client yesterday, and he said, you know, sometimes you don't want to know. And I was like, listen to me. You always want to know, because even if it's a worst case scenario, even if something horrible happened, like God forbid you found out you had stage 3 pancreas cancer, right? Like, at least you can stop working for 3 months and go to Italy or spend time with your dog, like, you know, or go say I'm sorry to that person, you know, or tell that person that you're still in love with them 20 years later. Like, you at least want the opportunity in life to
not knowing isn't going to help.
Not knowing isn't going to help on anything. And by the way, that's the most extreme case in most things these days, guys. Like, it's the year 2021. Like, you can fix the problem.
Yeah.
Like, it's very easy to solve the situation. So,
yeah.
You know.
So you're saying twice a year get labs, because things do change frequently. That's what I've heard from many of my friends that own lab companies.
They absolutely do. I mean, any number of things. I mean, cholesterol can change, and just knowing that you're in the wrong. I mean, like, triglycerides is a perfect example. Some people, they're just going through a period. I remember the last time I bulked and I got seriously big, I was eating a lot, and my triglycerides came back, and I was like, I'm in my 30s now. I better cool off. I don't need to eat this much food. And you can change it really radically. I mean, you can make intelligent, like I said, increasing your fiber, cutting back your portions, things like that. Emphasizing good fats, quality food choices, really easy way to clean things up, getting more active. You can make a change. So it's always good to have the information.
So the other side of your business, training. Obviously, you train a lot of people. You provide workout programs for people. Walk me through what a mix is that you would prescribe to someone who's looking to just, be the best executive, be the best dad. Not someone who's looking to be a professional athlete, but what is the best way to be healthy? How much zone 2 cardio are you doing? Anaerobic cardio, strength training, heavy weights, complex lifts.
Yep. So part of the business is coaching, and that's the largest portion, and we do a ton of coaching. It's myself, and I have designated nutritionists who work on each client with me, and I manage the project, and I'm on top of it. And I always say they ask the questions, and I give the answers, if that makes sense. And we have a 60% success rate. The normal rate of success on a diet is 3%. If you hire me, there's a 60%, even if you never meet me. Even if you're over in Colorado, even if you're California, it's a 60% success rate.
Incredible.
The part, and it's amazing, dude. I mean, my girlfriend has a running joke. She goes, you're an asshole, but you help so many people. You're a great combo.
Well, you stay on people. You stay on them. You're not going to they hire you. You're not going to let them get away with murder. Yeah. They're glued to you. I love that.
I'm very, and I'm that way anyhow, just in nature. I'm very assertive, and there's nothing wrong with that. I say all the time, I'm not nice, I'm kind.
Yeah. You care.
And kindness, exactly. I tell people what sometimes they don't want to hear. Like I had a client the other day, she came in, she was training with me, and she said, and she's been putting on quality muscle. But she's had a couple times where she was supposed to diet and she didn't want to do the coaching that moment, or she just had stuff going on, and she would always back out. And she said, "Well, how do I look?" I said, "Yeah, you look the biggest you ever have." And she goes, "That's not nice." And I said, "But you put on quality muscle. We both know that." I was like, "But you have quality muscle with adipose tissue over top of it." And later that day, she sent me something from Facebook about keep people around you that tell you things you don't want to hear. She sent me a heart sign. But I have plenty of people that tell me, people have joked with me and said to me, I'll be like, "Yeah, your arms are a little doughy." And a couple of minutes later, they'll come over to me and they go, "That's why I pay you the big bucks."
Yeah.
It's like that, and they're not kidding, because it's just nice to know, you want somebody to say, there's something on your face, dude.
Yeah.
And so the second part of the business is training, and it's 80% semi-private training now. That's primarily what I do in Westchester. I'm in Larchmont, New York. And for an everyday individual, and I program people from across, for most people, we're looking at American Heart Rate Association's recommendations, which is 150 of moderate minutes of cardio to 75 minutes intense. The way I have people do it is I typically have them do 90 minutes of steady state cardio, where they're between 110 and 130 beats per minute. And if they want to break that up into two 45-minute sessions, if they want to break it up into three 30-minute sessions, if they want to do three 30-minute sessions or two 45-minute sessions, perfectly fine with that. And then after that, if they want to throw some anaerobic training to that, so some HIIT and stuff like that, great. I like when people do HIIT, I'll have somebody do something where they get their heart rate as fast as possible up to 160, and then I'll have them just relax until they get back to 120, and then I'll have them rev back up to 160, and we'll wait and we'll relax, and and then they go again, and we'll do that circuit through a few different times, and we can utilize different mechanisms. It could be a skier, it could be a rower, it could be a VersaClimber, it could be the treadmill that's self-propelled, whichever one you have. There's a couple different ways to do it, but I like to do something like that for HIIT. There's different ways of doing it, but for a normal person, 90 minutes, I would say 110 to 130 beats per minute, zone 2 cardio, amazing. And that depends on you. Maybe you have tight hips, you can't jog, maybe you can. Ideally, you would be running, though, right? If you're extremely overweight, maybe we start with something different, like an elliptical or a bike, but in an ideal world, running 90 minutes. Weight training, I would recommend for a beginner twice a week, and I would focus on compound movements. I love reverse lunges. I love hinge patterns like a hex bar deadlift. I love a goblet squat, one-arm rows, anti-rotation press, one-arm dumbbell press. Depending on shoulder health, some form of pull-up or pull-down. These are great exercises. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel over here, to be honest with you. I'm very big on basics, but I will also tell you my clients look different, and they always have. And I get people, like you said about Brian Mazza. He looks totally different. I had a client, Kyle Brandt from NFL, totally different. I had a client who was I don't want to mention who he is, but he's on Shark Tank, and Brian Mazza just saw him at a wedding, and he goes, dude, he looked different than when I remember him. He did some social media thing with Devin, and Brian hadn't seen him in years, and I was like, yeah, well, because he lost 30 pounds with me. Of course his face looks different. And, that's the goal, it's results. That's what this is based on, is getting people to change their lives. And my big thing is I did a thing about what makes a great coach recently, and I said there's three things. There's three fundamental parts, and the first and foremost is accountability. Like, if you don't show up, if you cancel 24 hours, if you don't show up, you're charged. And when you show up, I'm asking you about what you've been eating, what you've been doing for activity, and how your training outside of us seeing each other is going. Two is inspiration. And I don't mean that like I'm so inspirational, but like I am a very intense man. I am a very large man. I will push you out of your comfort zone. I will inspire you to do things that you will walk in here and you will be a female doing an 80-pound goblet squat. You will be a female deadlifting 200 pounds. We are not here to kettlebell deadlift 40 pounds. That is not the women I see. I had a woman here the other day who, she's really is essentially like she has mom of three, and she sees a trainer a couple other days a week, but she comes in once a week with me for semi-pri, and I made her deadlift 106 pounds. She goes, that's a lot of weight. And I go, how much do your kids weigh? You're not going to be able to pick up your kids? I mean, you can't. You pick up a 40-pound grocery bag. You pick up a 60-pound kid, but you can't deadlift 100 pounds? And when you say that, the whole conversation changes. You're not going to get jacked from lifting a 100-pound kettlebell off the ground. You'll be okay. And so really big on those fundamentals. So that's number two, is inspire people. And then number three is just knowledge and empowerment. So empowering them with knowledge, which is just shortening the learning curve, like getting you to focus on the major, like, things that just are necessary, like, this supplement, or do I need to do fasted cardio, or things like this. Like, no. We're focusing on the major. There are other benefits to things, but let's focus on the stuff that yields you the most gains, because you have a career and you have children. So if I was a busy executive, I would be striving for those 90 minutes of cardio. I would be striving at first to weight train twice a week, focusing primarily on compound movements, reverse lunge, goblet squat, hex bar deadlift, one-arm rows, one-arm bench press, things that have a lot of bang for buck. And then if you have more time, lift 4 days a week and, focus on throwing some isolation movements for the parts you want. If you want to grow a muscle on your body, you want to look better, because, we talked about the major reason we do this is for like performance and stuff like this, but I like to be jacked. I like that look. I remember the first time I remember I was a little kid. I grew up, Dad was nowhere to be found, and I was at my grandfather's house, and Arnold Schwarzenegger came out of that freaking shed, and he had that bazooka on him, and from Commando. It was the movie Commando. I didn't even know the movie. It was years later that I realized what movie it was from. And I said, I want to be like that guy. I was like, and it's okay if you want that. So to build a muscle, it's about 20 sets a week, hard sets. So if you want a bigger chest, you got to freaking train your chest 20 sets a week. You want bigger shoulders, you got to train your shoulders 20 sets a week, and 20 difficult sets. So again, I would start with the compound movements and try to just get stronger at them with full range of motion. And then if you want a particular muscle group bigger, work volume into it, and you can, move it forward from there. And always take a recovery day. Unless you're somebody like you or me or Brian, a recovery day for you could be 4 miles or 6 miles or something like that, because it's so incredibly light. A recovery day for me would probably be 30 minutes of zone 2 cardio and like a 4-mile hike with my dog. But I won't touch any weights. Or maybe I'll just do calves.
Yeah. I always feel best if I just do calves. I love it. I feel best when I'm moving. So, I kind of let life get in the way for my rest days. Again, I'm training for, high performance to compete in various races. So, that's very different than just being, lifestyle fit. And so some of the things you mentioned in there.
But it's still a rest. Pardon me.
Oh yeah. I'm not lifting. I'm not going anaerobic. I'm not doing something that's going to compromise the next day. Correct.
Exactly. So relative to you, it's still a rest day. If you were a pretty active guy, foam rolling might be a rest day.
Sure.
If you're a pretty sedentary person, a rest day might be nothing.
Sure.
For a person like me who's very active, a rest day might be 5 sets of calves and some cardio, and then go on a long hike with my dog.
Yep.
For you, it might be 6 miles. It might be 8 miles. It might be just going living life. ATVing.
Yep. The big takeaways for me are when I was competing in Ironman, I honestly felt, throughout the last 14 years of my health and wellness journey, I kind of felt the worst towards the end of those Ironman years because it was just so one-dimensional, so endurance-based. I wasn't lifting heavy weights. I wasn't doing anything anaerobic. And these last 3 to 4 years where I've kind of reprioritized my training to be more based around strength and anaerobic conditioning, I feel my best, like crazy energy, more muscle mass, higher VO2 max. And, I think some of the big takeaways from this are lifespan and health span are heavily, heavily dictated by what your VO2 max is. Your VO2 max is going to be
massive. Yeah. Massive, dude.
Yeah.
Number one correlation with longevity is VO2 max.
Yeah.
Why we don't use that across the United States is because the cost to get a VO2 max. It's too expensive for, respectfully, somebody in Midwest or down south or all over the place. It's a very pricey test, so insurance won't run it for everybody. But your VO2 max is actually the number one correlation. Number two, resting heart rate. And number three is your LDL, your cholesterol, right? Like those are the three leading causes of prediction of like, hey, how much longer you got?
Yep. Yeah, so VO2 max, you're going to boost that by doing the highly anaerobic conditioning workouts or doing the zone 2 training. For me, bang for your buck wise, the anaerobic training, specifically what you said. So, you are redlining. You're not in the gray zone. You're not in zone 4. You're not in zone 3. You're kicking up to zone 6, like basically your max heart rate, but very short bursts. So we're talking 15 seconds on an assault bike, 30 seconds on an assault bike. Obviously, that time domain goes up based on, your fitness level, but very short high intensity spurts and letting yourself recover enough, going back down to that 110 or 120 so that you can kick it up to that same level again and repeating that. So that's what we're talking about with anaerobic conditioning to boost your VO2 max. And then the other one is grip strength and muscle mass. So, you have a ton of muscle mass. Muscle mass is highly, highly correlated to lifespan and health span. And obviously a function of grip strength is going to be muscle mass. So the two to some degree go hand in hand, but deadlift, toes to bar, any kind of movements where you're boosting your grip strength are going to be incredible for health span and lifespan.
So that is interesting, right? Because grip strength is one of the top correlations for like, are you still there and are you still with it? And we use that with like elderly population in part because it's a good way of viewing systemic strength, right? Mm-hmm. Like when you're truly strong, you just naturally have to have grip strength. Mm-hmm. Like I joke and say all the time, like I look really tough now. Mm-hmm. When I used to be way more active, I had a 725 deadlift, I had a 365 power clean. I was so wildly strong. Now I remember pressing on and full range of motion, pressing 180-pound dumbbells for 5 reps. Mm-hmm. Now I just look really, really strong. Like now I look more intimidating. I'm not that strong anymore, but those things, when you're that strong, your grip's unbelievable. And that's absolutely another thing that's correlated with it.
Mm-hmm. What's your training look like right now? What are you going back and forth between strength training days and zone 2 training days? How many are you doing? Hypertrophy, heavy weights? What's your training mix look like?
So I'm going to be 100% honest with all of you. I am in full insta-ho mode. And so right now I'm
content creation.
I'm shameless. So I am cutting body fat right now. I'm probably legitimately around 10% body fat. Mm-hmm. I can see my full abs without flexing when I don't have my shirt off. Mm-hmm. And I'll probably I have those Italian cheeks I joked about earlier. I'll probably have about another 7 pounds of fat to lose. Mm-hmm. And that's where most of mine. So I still train, but like right now I'm doing very much hypertrophy based training. And the reason is to maintain muscle mass. And also because the old fashioned bodybuilding splits of like doing chest a press, I really do a push day, or a pull day or a leg day. So I do push, pull, leg day, and I just do it each twice through. Mm-hmm. So I'll do a pull day on Monday. I'll do a pull day on, for example, Thursday. I'll do a press day on Tuesday. I'll do a press day on Friday. And I'll do legs on Wednesday and Saturday. And I only do that because it allows me to be able to do a lot of volume. Because hypertrophy you can actually achieve hypertrophy even while pretty fatigued. Mm-hmm. And the same is actually true with endurance running. Like certain things you can't, for example, if you're fatigued and you try to increase your Olympic lifts, not going to work. Mm-hmm. You need to be fresh to do explosive power stuff, mm-hmm. right? Whereas hypertrophy, you can be tired and you can do it. And honestly, respectfully, if you're doing hypertrophy training and you get injured, you're just really doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm. It's lightweight, high reps.
Yeah, you're being, and even if it's not lightweight, like somebody sees it, it looks heavy, it's still lightweight. Like I'm still still like, I don't remember what I did for RDLs today. I did 365, right? Well, that RDL way more than that. I just told you I deadlifted 725 before with a barbell before. So
50%.
Yeah, so relative. So there's no way I'm going to get injured doing that. Then I did Nordic curls, and like Nordic curls are very hard for people. I can do 12 of those, pretty much lights out, and do. I think my fourth set I only got like 10, right? So I'm picking exercises that I'm not going to get injured from, that I can burn a lot of calories, and I'll focus on that probably till December, and then December I'll be at the weight I want to be. And are you coming to Antigua?
I'm not. No.
Okay, so by the time Antigua rolls around in that, I'll be ripped up, and then I'll probably drop it back to something more functional and get back to a little bit more of that stuff, what I kind of more enjoy these days. And then I always do cardio, and so I jog twice a week, and then I do, honestly, like, I know people are going to rip on me, but I do a lot of elliptical work. I'm not telling you that it's a repetitive path, but the reality is I can get on a conference call, I can meet with people while I'm doing it,
Sure.
and I just put myself in zone 2 while I do the elliptical. My actual like running is for like conditioning and stuff like that, but I do the elliptical while I'm doing work, and I keep myself in zone 2, and I can keep myself at 120 beats per minute, and I can talk to like Michelle, who's my COO, and be like, hey Michelle, what's going on with this? What are we doing with this? How's this building out? Okay, can you do this? And she keeps me. I have to, like, I write my own Instagram posts, but I don't caption them and post them, right? Like, so I say what I think about the topic, and someone writes it down for me. I can do that while doing zone 2 cardio and elliptical.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, this all comes down to intention, and there's a million ways to be fit. There's a million ways to achieve this, a goal of either the aesthetic or feeling good.
Structure.
And ultimately comes down to exactly, like, what is your intention with it and what is your structure? And you're busy. So if you can combine zone 2 cardio with getting work done, then yeah, it makes all the sense in the world to do it on an elliptical where you don't have to be focused running down a mountain,
Yeah, and by the way, I would love to at a moment, like when I have the moment, when I pick up my dog, I'm going to get done with our podcast, I'm going to drive, I'm getting on a call to do all the edits from the videography that we shot yesterday. I'll get on elliptical while I do the edits with my videographer and with Michelle, and then I'll go pick up my dog, and I'll be off my phone for an hour on the hillside. Like, we were talking about running down the mountain. I'll still get the visual cues, and I'll still get it. It's just, if I have to sit on the phone for an hour, we actually had a really funny conversation. I was working with some of the nutritionists, and they were like, the CEO said, she said, hey, like when you're on the phone call with them, like they feel like you're not totally there. And I was like, I can't do cardio while I take this call. It was kind of like, not everybody thinks the way you and I do, but I would never not be doing something. If I could be active while doing something, I'm absolutely going to, because I'm trying to get things accomplished, and I can easily keep my heart rate at 125 or 120 while talking to someone.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. Again, multitasking without multitasking. You're getting two things done instead of just doing one thing, when you can easily do those two things together.
Exactly. And neither are compromised while doing it.
Yep. Where can people find you? Obviously on Instagram, your name, website.
Yep. So Jacob Zemer is on Instagram. I'm on TikTok now. I'm on YouTube. We just started doing long format videos. On YouTube, same thing. Instagram, I probably have the biggest following, but we're starting to move everything else along. We just started in October doing everything else. And then you can go to jacobzemer.com. Again, I offer coaching. Last year we helped over 200 people lose 20 pounds. We always have like knockout cases where people lose like 50, 60 pounds with us. I have a guy right now who's just about to finish up his journey. He's lost 80 pounds with me. If you're in the Westchester area, you can also talk to me about doing semi-private training. Same thing. I work 6 to 2 Monday through Friday, doing semi-privates along with managing the coaching business. And jacobzemer.com is the easiest place to find me. Or I always like people to go to Instagram, because if you go to Instagram, you get my tone of voice. You probably did from this podcast, and you can decide, like, I really want to work with this guy.
You're one of my favorite follows on Instagram. I love the way that you've redirected everything. So I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate the content you're putting out there. And I love your personality. You're such an amazing human. So thank you for coming on the Restore podcast with me today.
Dude, in all sincerity, you are, and I mean this sincerely, you're the nicest person I know in the fitness industry. It's such a catty industry. People are so like afraid. And I remember I was HPLT. I probably had like 2,000 followers, 3,000 followers on Instagram. And you put the story up and said, you got to follow this guy. And like, you are just like, and I mean this sincerely, you are such a nice human being. And there's plenty of people that just I was joking with Brian about this, and I said if I grew up in Eric's situation, I'd probably be not a nice guy. I probably had to go through the turmoil and the hardship that I had to go through to be the man I am today.
Sure.
And you are just such a wonderful human being. So,
I appreciate that,
sincerely.
brother. Thank you so much.
Welcome,
and
dude.
give Jacob a follow. His content's amazing. 9 Elements listeners can receive 20% off your first Restore service using the code ELEMENTS20 when making your first appointment. That code again is ELEMENTS20 to save 20% when booking your first service at Restore.